So I'm here today talking to Jens and Michael, the founders of The Bear Kitchen. Two men on a mission to change the way we think about food. Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good morning, Zoe. We're good, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Good morning, Zoe. Thank you for having us.
Hello. So let's talk about The Bear Kitchen. You create delicious, healthful meals designed to nourish, bring people together, and to try and change the way that we think about food. I feel to call you a food business seems to really only scratch the surface of what you're about. It seems more like the beginning of a movement, and that in these uncertain and constantly changing times feels really exciting. So I'd love to know about how this all began, how we need to be more like a bear, and how and what you guys are doing to change the way that we think about food on a daily basis. Jens, how did two Danes come together to find themselves in London and start a food business? Tell me all about that.
Yeah, so I think you hit the head on the nail there, Zoe, that it's much more than just a company. Really, it's about starting a movement. The purpose of this movement is that we're changing the world by changing the way we eat. And Michael and I had a serendipitous meeting of minds back in 2015 when I was running my sort of fire test startup that ended up being a failure. But as anybody in entrepreneurship will know, failures are what you learn the most from. And Michael was actually brought in by some of our customers who were considering bailing us out when we were running out of cash. And I remember this conversation vividly, you know, when Michael looked me straight in the eye and said, "Look, Jens, it's a great brand and it's a great product. You know, I love everything you're doing, but your business case is pretty fucked." Unfortunately, I can't recommend that they invest in this, but we should definitely keep the dialogue going. And I thought this is one hell of a guy, you know, somebody that I would definitely like to work with. We have very complementary skills. I don't know, maybe Michael's going to talk a little bit about that. And then I started sending Michael videos and documentaries and articles about food and what our food choices are doing to the planet, particularly when it comes to factory farm meat, and also overfishing and so on. And then Michael wrote me an email for some reason in English in the beginning of 2016. He just wrote to me, "Hey Jens, you've got yourself a co-activist." And it was basically the kickoff to the Bear Kitchen. And I think maybe I should just explain because a lot of people might still be wondering why it is called the Bear Kitchen.
Exactly.
So basically, both Michael and I, we eat healthy. We come from families, both of us, where sitting down around a meal was a sacred thing, and we would eat good food, but nobody would ever talk about healthy. And I think, like a lot of people these days, you know, most of us want to eat healthy. We also want to take care of the planet. But we're being bombarded with diet fads and isms and do this, clean eating, do that, you know, don't eat this, restriction in one way or the other. So we thought there must be like a more simple alternative to ditching this week's killer food or jumping on the latest diet fad. And so with a little bit of inspiration from a furry friend in roaming the wilderness of our Scandinavian homelands, we came up with a simple philosophy, which is to eat like a bear. And now you might be asking yourself, well, what can I learn from a bear about good eating? But actually, it turns out that unless, of course, you are a koala bear, panda bear, or polar bear, it turns out that actually bears eat primarily plants, up to 90%, depending on their specific locality. And the really interesting thing about bears is that obviously they have no concept of seasonal or local, yet they eat nothing else. And a bear has never heard of a factory farm or a hyper-processed Twinkie. So it's just a really, really good analogy for a way that we as people also can eat, where there's a good natural balance between all the major food groups. Basically, it's a way of not compromising the pleasure of what a good meal means to the individual, but also not compromising our health and also helping to ensure that there's going to be a beautiful, thriving planet for generations to come.
I think that's great. We've really overcomplicated what food is and healthy and natural and all these buzzwords that are thrown around to us. And you're right, you've gotten so far away from actually just eating what's around us, eating what's on the tree at that time. You know, it's we live in a complicated world where sadly, you know, we can't eat like a bear all the time. But I think if we look more towards businesses and food providers that are helping us to understand where our food comes, understand about seasonal growing, understand about food rather than that buzzword or that food fad. So
and I think might be important also just put a fat line under here. We're obviously talking about the bear in symbolic terms. We're not expecting anybody to go out and actually do foraging. Unless of course they want to, that's great. I mean, there's the reality of what modern life looks like. So the eat like a bear philosophy is more of a rule of thumb to say, okay, if I eat mostly plants, if I focus on what's in season, ideally what's local, if I eat less but better quality meat, using it for flavor rather than being the main thing, letting vegetables be the star of the show, then I'm going to live longer, healthier, and happier, and I'm going to make sure that there's a planet for my children and their grandchildren as well. That's basically the idea.
So it's a philosophy that's going to underpin our overcomplicated urban lives, I think.
I mean, essentially, it is what you could say. If you look at traditional peasant diets like the Mediterranean diet, how they eat in Japan, how they used to eat in China, it's essentially the Mediterranean diet rebranded. It's about a balance of food groups. But obviously, when we say Mediterranean diet, people think about pizza, pasta, and lasagna. And when you think about, you know, Chinese food, it's something else again, you know. So this is, in a way, it's some smart branding that makes the introduction to the story sort of easy to remember. You know, it's the anchor that sort of hooks in all the other aspects of it.
So much more than simply a business that's delivering delicious meals. Michael, have you always been a foodie person? Where does your food journey start, and how is that kind of transferred into your core purpose with the Bear Kitchen?
As Jens said, that when we met, there was like so many similarities. So I'm born and raised in food. My mom and dad ran restaurants in the southern parts of Denmark, and it was a local business taking care of its people, the local communities, and without knowing it, if you think about what's good for the planet, actually was probably better for the planet than many other food businesses are today. So I think unconscious, I was on the journey when I met Jens as well, where I wanted to, you know, find out what the great ones were doing. But I found out very quickly the great ones are doing more than an outcome. They know their role as a business is not just to create food, it's actually to take care of people, community, and the planet. And they have a long-term game of this. They don't have an end goal in mind. They are on a journey. And I meeting Jens, and around that time I was very frustrated about where food and restaurant were going, where we were actually have lost a bit of the connection with, you know, great food, happy customers. It became a transaction, and it became very profit driven, and you need to make a profit to run a business. We cannot disagree on that. There must be a better way, and there was a lot of stress, a lot of strain already at that time. We're talking 2015, I think, 14, Jens and I's meeting, and see where we are today with COVID-19 and all the dismay there is in the industry. And I think it comes from we've forgotten actually deeply what our role is as a food business, and is actually being this advocate for great ingredients and taking care of people, hospitality. And the Bear Kitchen is not the only solution. It's an example of how you can create, or trying to create, a business that's more about the journey. And the bear is bigger than Jens and I. We're just servants of the bear and trying to help it on its way. And I think it's this thing again, like, you know, we don't have to be here just to create the next month's profit line. We actually need to be here for something bigger. We need to make some impact on people, community, and planet. And you can only do that by having a long-term view on things. So my view, and I've changed over the years, I've also been very commercial and very profit driven, was that there's something not working here. There's something didn't feel right. And then, like, on that journey, meeting Jens, watched a lot of documentary, what we're actually doing to our food system. And I think it's quite evident now there's something not working in our food system, because we have a crisis here around food, and we have an industry in its knees. And my journey and my passion is just to make that industry, you know, better, or finding a way where we actually can make it sustainable for everyone. And it's not only for the investors, but it's also for the people working in it. It's for the people enjoying the food there, and it's for the communities we're in, that we actually create a hospitality and food industry that actually does more than just run the business. So it's a larger mission we're on, that's saving the planet, making community better, and making sure that people have great jobs. And that's where my passion goes into it. And it's a life journey, I think.
It's such a big task. It's you're more than changing people's views on the food that they're eating, and that they should be going for a healthy, balanced, locally sustainable, whole foods based meal rather than opening a packet of something, from a supermarket. But it's also about changing the way that people are thinking about business and thinking about hospitality, because, like all big business, it gets sucked up into the capitalist corporate machine, and it's something that's unavoidable of being disconnected to. But how is the Bear wanting to change the way that business is done within hospitality, in terms of how you are working with your suppliers and how you're working with your teams? How are you going to do it differently, and really make a difference?
I think it's very important, if I can answer this, Jens, I think it's very important to have a purpose and a vision. And Jens and I, we brought together a shared vision and purpose. Every business needs that for the sake of it. And the vision is not to double the profit next year. That's not a vision. That's very short-sighted. And then it's important to have a culture that can live out that vision. And all successful business have a very clear vision, a very strong culture, and they understand how to run business, because we are not saying don't make profit, but use the profit as a tool to change the world or make impact and do things better. And then you need systems, of course, again. So you cannot just have like a fluffy purpose if you don't have these things in place. So the way we intend to do it, I'm trying to intend to do it, and being, of course, like anyone else, disrupted by what's going on right now, is that we are definitely trying to articulate and, formulate our vision. It doesn't mean that our vision hasn't changed. It changes all the time. It's like a muscle. Same goes with our culture. So what we've done on the culture bit to make sure that we are more clear about that and our people can live it, is that we wrote a book together with a book of behaviors and beliefs. That's actually our culture. So we wrote that together with them. We'll probably rewrite that after COVID-19, because the world has changed. We are building, commercial skills and trying to work with the best commercial minds of how to develop the best business models. Because if we don't do that, of course we can't be here and serve the planet if we not have thought about a business model that works. And then, of course, systems, business systems, and making sure that we implement systems that outlive ourselves. And it doesn't mean that, corporates are very good at systems, but maybe some corporates are missing some of the purpose and the culture when it comes to, because they don't start with that. That's sometimes something they pick up on the way. But we started there with the purpose and the culture, and then the business model and the business systems developed out from that. And I think that's the different approach that we are taking. We started with vision and culture, and then we created a commercial model. And the commercial model can always change. So I guess that you've seen that everybody has pivoted under this situation. We have done the same. So you find out that commercial models or product lines or whatever, they are not more worth than the market are willing to do right now. And that means, what people buy is your culture and vision. And you've seen that happen already before this. But I think when you come back, people will vote with their food dollars, and they will join businesses that care for planet, community, and people.
I think it's.
Yeah, I think can I just add? Sorry, just coming back to recap this. So it's again coming back to, you said how we think about business, but actually it's about how businesses think about businesses.
Exactly.
Or what it means to be in business. So at the moment we have a situation, particularly in the food industry, where short-term profits, quarterly profits, are being exchanged at the expense of long-term sustainability and our individual health. Because the fact of the matter is, all of us here have worked in the food industry, and we know that actually most businesses And that's not to slander the food industry, but it's a fact that most of them do not care about our health and long-term sustainability. What they care about is maximizing their profit in the short term for their shareholders. And because of the situation now, because of COVID-19, and because the world, everything is up in the air, actually the businesses that do not understand that they are an extension of society and society is an extension of nature, those are the businesses that will go under. So now there's a very real financial imperative as well for businesses to rediscover what are we actually here for? What is our purpose? And like Michael said, so many businesses, they kind of purpose, oh yeah, we need to talk about it, but really they don't understand, and their employees don't understand why they're coming to work. So what we did with our book of culture is that we made absolutely sure that everybody in the Bear Kitchen understands that when they come to work, it's not just so they can get their hourly wage, it's actually so they can be part of something that's much bigger than themselves, which is much more meaningful. And then what you get are truly motivated staff. Then what you get is a story that's alive. And then you get customers that you don't have to sell to. They want to buy what it is that you're offering because they trust it. And I think trust is absolutely key here as well. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to add. And then I think it's also important just now that we are on the notion of vision, that at the heart of the Bear Kitchen, ultimately what we want to achieve with what we call the impact roadmap, so the Bear Kitchen being a part of this, is that we want to restore the connection between humanity and nature. This appreciation that underneath all the veneer, that all the social creations, the social constructs, our schools and our societies and so on, there's a deeper reality where everything is connected. You know, when we eat something, it doesn't come from a supermarket. It comes from the earth, ultimately. You know, whether it's an animal product or whatever it is that you're eating, vegetables, it all comes from Mother Earth. And that's not a new age kind of hippie flower power kind of talk. That's a rational acknowledgement of the fact that everything is connected, and businesses as well as individuals, as institutions, the sooner we come to this acknowledgement, the sooner we can actually hope to see harmony and balance restored.